And a very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Issues and Attitudes. My name is Jeff Owens, director of WEIU-FM. My co-host is Casey Berry.
Hello, hello.
From Newswatch and Hitmixer Morning Show. And making a return appearance today is Mr. Jim Littleford from the Charleston school system, I'll say. Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Littleford.
There you go, Jeff and Casey. Thank you for having me this afternoon.
Good. And we also would like to, like you said, we want to let you know that Larry Lilly from the Mattoon School District was invited to be here today, but Larry doesn't know his age, I guess, and you probably have heard had an unfortunate accident where he's recuperating and I guess doing well over in Mattoon, but didn't get to make the trip over today. So best wishes and a speedy recovery to Mr. Larry Lilly. Well, let's recap maybe the 11-12 school year here in Charleston and talk about maybe some of the highlights and the good news, Jim.
Well, I think we've had a very good school year, Jeff, and academically our test scores were very good once again. We continue to value what Eastern Illinois University brings to the table for us and all the programs that we're able to co-op with them and so forth, so we're very, very appreciative of that. Casey and I were sitting here talking just a little bit ago. We were talking about security issues. We've talked about security for well over a year. We had I don't know if it's a highlighted point in time, but we had definitely an emphasized point in time on February 24th where we had a student who claimed that he saw somebody at school with a gun, and certainly that brought some of the security issues to task then. We are waiting on approval currently as a school district from the Illinois State Board of Education for their approval to be able to use some health life safety monies to begin our projects as far as increasing our security, and the security increases are mostly at the high school. Most of the buildings have already been locked down, elementary building and middle school buildings, and Jefferson currently is not locked down but has a camera, and we will lock them down as well on the front door. And of course, all the other doors are locked. At the high school, you know, we're going to have a number of measures that are going to take place. We're going to be looking at magnetic door locks on some of our main entrances, indoor, outdoor cameras, a new sidewalk around the northeast corner of the building because the doors are going to be locked except for passing periods and so forth. So we've got some training going on for our secretaries, and we're going to change the way that you enter the school and that type of thing probably about 9 o'clock in the morning. So we have a number of things that are transpiring at the high school.
Let's go back to that day when I guess we'll refer to it as the incident happened. When you are the school superintendent, what's the first thing that goes through your mind, and then take us through what after that what you kind of did?
Well, you know, that's one of the worst things that you can have happen, and you hope and you pray that it's just a hoax and it'll be discovered very quickly and that you can move on from that. On that particular day, I was actually not at school, and so Mr. Velardo contacted me. I told him immediately because I wasn't there. I wanted him to run as the point man for that, for communications and so forth. And he immediately went to the high school to help Mrs. Hutchins and Mr. Dowdy get a handle as to what was going on. You know, there's a lot of emotions that go through. You know, how much information do you release, and when do you release that information, and who do you bring in, and all those issues. We'd like to think that we did a pretty good job. We learned some things, obviously, from that incident, but we think we hit some things right on the nail, and head right on the nail, and you know, we were very fortunate. We had nobody was injured during the particular incident. We actually were able to find out who'd made the calls, and of course some disciplinary action is entailed because of that.
Okay.
So. Well, moving on from that point now, you know, you've got all of these security measures going into place. Is this something that you were thinking about before, or has this kind of all of this actually transpired since then?
Casey, actually, you know, we started talking about this a year ago last spring, and Mr. Dowdy, our assistant principal at the high school at that time, had put a committee together of high school staff to begin to talk about some of their concerns and what were some of the things that we could actually do to help make things better. I was a little bit surprised, and I'm in my 5th year now as superintendent in the district, or beginning my 5th year. When I came to the district and toured the high school, it was a little bit like going back to my high school years back in the early 1970s, because really at the high school you could go about any door and leave any door anytime you wish throughout the school day. You don't find that very often anymore. We hadn't had the instance that I was aware of at that point in time. We began to talk about some things, obviously. We began to lock down some of the elementary buildings, at least the front doors, because all the other doors were locked at that point in time, and put cameras on, released buttons for the magnetic door locks that we had in place, and that type of thing. But to answer your question in a nutshell, yes, we'd already started talking about these things and what we're going to do prior to the school year, and probably will run into the school year as a culmination of what started probably 15 months ago.
Now, are you confident that the Illinois State Board of Education will approve everything, release the money, and so you can actually implement everything?
Well, Jeff, I'm very hopeful. You never know when you're talking about the state board money, particularly these days.
State money is all you have to say, right?
Exactly, but we're very hopeful that we'll get to go ahead and we'll be able to go very shortly on those things.
Okay. The other thing is kind of that I want to tag along with this that's been in the news, and all this weekend was in the news, is bullying. Right. What's the Charleston School District doing about stopping bullying, maybe even before it happens or even after you see an incident?
It was very interesting. If you saw, it was all over the tabloids and of course all over the news about the lady or the bus aide in Detroit and so forth. We know that we're just like everybody else in the world, every school district in the world. We have bullying issues. We'd like to think that we have fewer bullying issues than most, but we know that we have bullying issues. What we hope is that we're addressing those issues. Now, when we say that we're addressing those issues, that varies somewhat, because if you're on the end of being bullied, and something happens to the person that's bullying you, it's up in question as to whether that was enough or not. Did that take care of the problem? All those issues that you deal with there. But we'd like to know. In fact, I insist on from our administrators, we handle bullying problems. We do not want those things to go on and on and on. Sometimes we know about them. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we don't get enough information. We have to go digging and finding out exactly what's going on. But I'm very insistent upon our administrators dealing with bullying.
Okay. And the other thing I will switch to for all the sports fans out there is the Apollo Conference is ever changing.
It is.
Preparing to add Mattoon for this coming school year. But let's talk about the Apollo, where you see it coming, and maybe even future changes with that could happen down the line.
Well, Jeff, I anticipated in the spring, I really anticipated Taylorville coming in the conference. That one took me by surprise when they requested the opportunity to come in, and then the board voted it down. I think it was on a 4-3 vote. Then I was surprised a little bit later on when they decided, like the next month or 2 months later, they decided that they wanted to come in. We certainly, at least from a Charleston perspective, we welcomed Taylorville in the conference. I thought it was a good fit a long time ago. If I was in Taylorville's shoes in that community, the Central States 8 is a big conference. Some of those schools are absolutely very large, and actually Taylorville coming in will be one of the larger schools in the Apollo. So we're very grateful, I think, to get them. I think they're a good fit. Years ago when I was growing up in Vandalia, they were actually in the Mid-State Conference at that point in time, and their enrollment was large then, but they were never dominant. They were a good fit for that conference, and I think they'll be a good fit for the Apollo Conference. It's probably a good thing because I saw recently where Oblong has been admitted into the LOVC. What I would anticipate at some point in time is that possibility of Paris going into the LIC. So that'll put us back at the 6 that's needed for a conference, for a football conference and so forth, to be able to get those bids to the state playoffs. So,
and Paris has expressed interest in really wanting to get out at some point, it seems.
Yeah, and we hate to lose them because I think they're very competitive within the Apollo. I could certainly understand and do understand why they might be interested in the LIC. At least maybe I think that's split up into divisions, so they'd be in the larger division. I think their enrollment is over 600, but obviously a good fit for the LIC.
So if when you had Taylorville and Mattoon coming in, let's assume for sake of argument in this conversation that Paris leaves in the future, do you try to still go out and try to find 1 or 2 more, or are you happy with the 6? I mean, 6 is scary when it comes to state football.
It is, but I think we're pretty solid right now. I do know I saw some things in the paper earlier this year about Decatur schools expressing an interest. I guess my biggest concern is that they're so big. We could end up in the same scenario as Taylorville and the Central States 8. I think if if I remember correct, Eisenhower is well over 1,300 students, so we'd have to be certainly very careful there. We've just had Mattoon come in, and they're running around 1,000. Taylorville's going to be in that 950 to 975 range. So, we just have to be very careful about the size of the schools that we allow in the conference, because we want to make sure that the Salem and Effingham and Charleston and Mount Zion, that we're all very competitive. And I think we're in a conference right now where we are competitive, and I don't see anybody dominating. We've talked about Mattoon coming in. They're about 1,000 students, maybe a little bit more than that, but I think they're going to be a good fit for the Apollo Conference.
And my next question is going to be how excited are you about the upcoming Mattoon-Charleston football game? I think it's the 4th or 5th game on the schedule in the fall. It's going to be held here on the campus of Eastern Illinois at O'Brien. A lot of people are already talking about it. Tell us your thoughts.
I know. I'm just thrilled to death. I think this is going to be a really showcased event for our communities. And as much as it will separate Charleston and Mattoon because of the rivalry, it'll also bring them together. It's not going to be at Mattoon. It won't be at Charleston High School. It won't be at Mattoon High School. It's at a different venue. It's at a Division I facility. I just look forward to it. I think it's going to be a great hit, and we look forward to competing.
Is there any details out there that people can know about? I know a lot of people have asked me, do you have to pay for parking? Is ticket prices the same? Is there anything that that you can?
Right off the top of my head, there's not going to be any charge for parking, and we talked about that initially. If I remember correctly, all ticket prices are $5, which is actually less than what you pay if you go to the IHSA series, and we're anticipating, Jeff, a large crowd. In fact, that was one of the reasons that we began to talk about Eastern, was the fact that we weren't sure we could accommodate the crowds at Charleston High School or Mattoon High School, because we're anticipating maybe 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 people being there. So it could be quite a venue for us.
I think the first one is going to be an absolute, what do they say, must-see football game.
I think, and what a thrill for kids to be able to play on a Division I field, and to be able to say newly surfaced. Exactly. We're very grateful for that. But to be able to say, you know what, when I was a junior, I was a senior, I got to play at Eastern Illinois University, and we played Mattoon or we played Charleston, that type of thing. I think it's going to be exciting and good for both communities.
Okay, Case.
Well, what do you? Say, you want to keep it competitive in the IHS, or in the Apollo Conference. You want to keep it competitive. What happens if a bigger school like Decatur or somebody else does eventually come in? I mean, what happens with the balance?
Well, that's very interesting, and I know that Decatur, to use them as an example, they did some fact finding. I think they actually attended one of the Apollo Conference meetings at one point in time. Casey, before they would ever be admitted to the conference, that would have to be approved by a vote of all the member schools, and I'm sure that everything would be looked at very carefully.
Mm-hmm.
And the school, I know if Teotopolis a few years ago was interested a little bit. They don't have football down there, so it doesn't help in that aspect. But obviously, they bring a great tradition in baseball and basketball.
Oh, they do.
They would, I guess.
They would, and I know at the time they were talking about implementing football, and I've not heard much about that since that point in time. I think they tried to come in or were interested in coming in at maybe the wrong time, because the state of Illinois got into such a financial crisis over the past few years, and it just kind of, football's expensive, particularly when you start football and you have to add all the equipment and so forth. There's a possibility in the future, I suppose, that they could add football and want to come in the conference. I think we'd have to take a really strong look at them.
That's an easy trip, too, as well, if you're traveling.
It is.
Speaking of finances, we might as well get to the finances. Obviously, when we talk about state and Illinois here at Eastern, we're in the same boat, some aspect that you are at Charleston Community Unit 1, is where are we financially for Charleston, and how does it look in the next 18 months or so?
Well, Jeff, in case if you remember, about 2-3 years ago, we anticipated some of these things that were coming forth, and with the consumer price index going really way down almost to zero, us being a tax cap school district and so forth, we made some cuts, we called them educational reductions. That's been very good for us at this point in time, and has made our school district balances, our finances, very sound. There are some things out there that could obviously put us and other school districts' finances in peril. The pension shift that they're talking about and putting that back on the local school districts, we're probably looking, depending on which figure that you listen to percentage-wise, we're probably looking at around the $800,000 figure. You know, yes, we have good fund balances at this point in time, and we could certainly pick that up for a year or two. But you know, that's $800,000 a year. That's a lot of money. We don't make $800,000 a year in our general ed fund. So, we would have to take a real hard look at that. We're not panicking right now, and I know that there's been talk of bringing it in maybe 1% at a time and then 0.5% at a time, that type of thing. But obviously, your revenues have to match, your expenditures. We're not like the state of Illinois. We have to pay our bills, and we'd have to make adjustments for that. So that's a huge thing. That could be devastating to a lot of school districts, and certainly wouldn't be good for ours as well. You know, the state of Illinois is currently looking at doing a lot of proration for general state aid. Up until this year, that'd always been a sacred cow, so to speak, and we'd always gotten state aid payments. We're not getting all of our state aid payments, the last two payments, which could amount to around $700,000. That's a tremendous hit for our school district, and they're telling us next year to count on proration again. So not very happy about that piece of it. Transportation payments, your guess is as good as mine. I still don't know what they're going to do with transportation. We have not received a state aid payment that we were supposed to receive in fiscal year 12. We've not received one payment yet. We got two payments from a year ago, but we've not received anything from this year yet. So, you know, they're not taking care of us from that standpoint. Once again, I'll go back and talk about what we did a couple of years ago. Was very, very instrumental. We got an early jump on things, and has been very instrumental in us not having to reduce our staff any further. So,
do you foresee a day when the school bus is no more? That it's just going to be up to the individual parents to get their kids to school?
You know, well, Jeff, that's very hard for me to imagine. Just think of the students that might not come to school or couldn't get to school. I'm making an assumption. This goes back prior to me that with all, at one time Illinois just had hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of tiny school districts. In fact, I think maybe in Coles County there was like over 60 school districts in Coles County. I think when they brought them all centrally to one location, like Charleston High School and the Charleston schools, I think that's when school buses became really prevalent, because they had to get those rural kids into school. I certainly hope that that's not the case, because we want all of our students in Coles County have an opportunity to get a good education.
It would be part of Americana missing too when you think about it. How would we not to see a school bus when you're driving to work?
That would be amazing. That would be simply amazing, wouldn't it?
If they got rid of trains on my side of town in Mattoon, another show for that one later on. Also, you have a new athletic director, and he's also your men's basketball coach.
That's correct, Jim Wood.
Jim Wood.
And Jim has been an integral part of the basketball program for several years now as a JV coach, and has coached other sports, football at the high school level and so forth. And we think Jim's going to be a very good fit. He knows our kids that are going to be basketball players. He's had them as JV coach, and I think actually they went to a shootout this past weekend down in Casey. I haven't heard how they did, but I'm assuming that they did pretty well. We have a lot of student athletes back on the basketball team. Also think he's going to be a good fit as athletic director at the high school, and he understands athletics and has a very good head on his shoulders. He's very calm and reacts to situations in an appropriate manner, and look forward to, in fact, I'm already working with Jim on a lot of different things, and look forward to working with him throughout the school year.
Shameless plug, Mr. Wood will be here in a few weeks on Issues and Attitudes, good. And we're going to talk to him about athletics and basketball and football and everything Charleston, so just stay listening and stay watching there. You gotta love the shameless plug though, right? When does school start in Charleston, and what do you do now, Mr. Littleford, from now until school starts? How's the schedule work? I mean, a lot of people think teachers don't work, but you're not a teacher in per se. So
yeah, I'm very busy right now, so a lot of things going on. We are currently in negotiations with our educational support staff. That's been going on since spring, and we'd love to have that wrapped up by the time school starts, but time will tell on that. As far as other things are concerned, we're getting ready for the start of the school year. School year starts for us on August August 20th. And that'll be an Institute Day for teachers. We're back about a week later than what we've been the past few years. So as far as having time off for the summer, kids have had almost 3 full months off, very close to having some time off. So I'm sure moms and dads will be ready to have them come back to school.
Release them. I noticed on your website it's very updated with your mission and your Board of Education and all this. You've got to be proud of the website that Charleston School District does. Who does that work, and how much input do you have as the superintendent?
Well, Mary Ann Patnow is the director of our technology, and does an outstanding job, and we've spent a lot of time looking, evaluating the website. She keeps it up to date. We have a company that we work with in addition to that that helped us build it. We're just very, very pleased. People tell us it's very people friendly and it's easy to navigate and so forth, and that was our purpose.
You're also one of the guys that I've said is that you're, superintendents, don't have to be visible in the community. They can sit in their office, but you're always out and about. I see you at ball games. I see you at chamber meetings. I see you, just around town. Was that one of your plans when you came up to Charleston, that you wanted to be a guy that people could be, they could access to, and that was out in the community?
Absolutely, Jeff. And what I wanted people to understand was I'm just like them. I have 3 children in the school system. I have a wife who teaches in another school district. Being visible was very important for me. Number one, I get a lot of input. I get a lot of feedback when I'm out at a ball game or I'm out at an event or a chamber meeting, that type of thing. That's important to me. I want to know what's going on. I want to know what the thoughts are in the community and so forth. And the only way that you can really do that is to get out and mingle with people.
There you go. Anything on your mind over there, Casey?
How does that help you? How do you handle all of that information and then make it possible, to make sure that people's concerns are being met and things like that?
Well, I bounce that off my wife, Casey, and she tells me what to do. No, it's a filtering process that I have built in just from experience and so forth. But I'm always looking for input. If we've got issues, if we've got problems that perhaps I'm not aware about, I want to know about those things. And it may be just somebody in passing saying, oh, by the way, did you hear about this or hear about that? I appreciate those comments, and a lot of times I'll go back to the central office and share that with our staff and say, tell me more about what's going on.
There you go. Any job openings, any teachers openings, anything out there for the school year, or are you set?
We do have some openings currently, Jeff, and I would tell people if they want to know what's available to go to our website and navigate our website and find out what employment opportunities are out there.
Okay. The thing that's also different now in school is technology. There's social media. Every kid brings a phone to school, whether they can use it or not. Talk about some of the policies about social media and really the phone usage in the school for a student.
Well, that's really interesting. We're actually redoing our social media network policy as we speak. We just approved it recently and have our technology director actually coming into a policy committee meeting a little bit later this week to talk about some additional things as well. One of the things that we know in CUSD number 1 is that technology is ever changing. And from my 12-year-old, my 11-year-old that I have at home, they absolutely put me to task when it comes to things that are happening on their iPhones and iPods and iPads and those types of things. So, we want to be cognizant and always aware of what's going on out there technology-wise. One of the things that we did this past year, we allowed our high school students to use telephone during passing period. You know what? It worked out very well. I think we were very scared of allowing them to do that, but they handled it. Mrs. Hutchins tells me that they handled it very well, and we had very few problems with that. So we are constantly adapting and adjusting all the time to technology needs.
What do you think's next when you in technology? Have you thought about that? There's always going to be the next. It seems as soon as Facebook got really popular, Twitter became more popular. Now it's what's going to be after Twitter and what's going to be next.
Well, I think, Jeff, from our standpoint, and we've already started looking at it. We know how feasible it is right now, but perhaps going away from textbooks and looking at iPads or computers or something.
Tablet, I think.
Tablets. There we go. Those types of things to replace textbooks. And I don't know, that may happen over the years. I know some schools are starting to experiment with that. That's going to be very costly. So we're being very careful about how we handle that.
Here. Let's switch back to sports since we love sports here. Brian Halsey's football team last year made it all the way to the state semis. Had the town just everybody in the world was excited. Talk about this year. I know you're the superintendent, but everybody follows the football team. They should have a good team back. What are your expectations?
Well, it's interesting. I went to he has weight conditioning for all students in the school, and on Friday. I think they do that on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, if my memory is correct. So I went Friday and just stuck my head in there and watched all kinds of student athletes in the weight room and running in the gyms and so forth. From a football perspective, I think we have an opportunity to be very, very good. Time will tell, obviously, and obviously it depended upon injuries as well. You've got to stay injury-free, particularly with football and basketball and so forth. So, but could be very exciting again.
But with football also has been in the news, and that's where I was going to lead, is the concussion thing.
Right.
I think I read something in the paper that you guys are trying to establish some policy with concussions.
Right.
It has been the big story the last year.
And basically, I think we had everything in place, except we didn't actually have the policy in place in our policy manual. We've worked with the School Board Association, who's worked with the IHSA to make sure that everything is in place. And you know, things have changed in recent years, and obviously equipment's better, but years ago, when kids said they were ready to go, you put them back in ball games. Now that's all changed, and it has to be approved by the trainer, may have to be approved by a physician, those types of things. So we're trying to get our dot our I's and cross our T's to make sure that we do everything the way that we should, and that we don't put kids back on the field that don't need to go back on the field.
I was talking with a friend earlier this weekend about the younger football, and there's talk that maybe kids are starting too early. Have you ever thought about that? I mean, I know it's not under your guidelines, but I mean, it seems to me that maybe is 5th grade, 6th grade, 4th grade football good for a kid?
You're going to get a variance of opinions on that. I can't really answer that. I am an advocate of 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade JFL football. I think it's good for kids. Is there issues with concussions? If there certainly are, I'd certainly like to know about them and could express my wishes as well. I've not seen any data that says it's bad for younger students. In fact, I actually read an article over the weekend or late last week that talked about maybe perhaps some of the serious injuries, head injuries that the NFL's talking about, maybe not. They don't have any more issues with those later on in life than a normal person does. So it depends on what you're reading right now.
You've got about a minute and a half left. Jim, any other good news that you would like to share from the Charleston School District?
Jeff, just that things are going well right now. We're very pleased with what's going on within our school buildings. We're very pleased with the relationship that we have with Eastern Illinois University and what they bring to the table. If you've not lived in a university town, if you've always lived in a university town, you don't know some of the things that EIU brings. So we're very, very appreciative of that, and all the people that are out working in our schools on behalf of Eastern for Charleston schools.
Now, will you get any time away this summer to enjoy yourself for the 2012-2013 season starts?
Actually, I did get a little bit of time to go on vacation at the beginning of the summer. Now it's time to get back to work.
All right, 30 seconds to go. A couple unrelated vacation this year. Where'd you go?
We went to Cancun, Mexico.
Oh, not bad.
Yeah.
Your favorite patriotic song as we come up on the July 4th?
Star Spangled Banner.
Sesame Street character. Who's your favorite?
Elmo.
See?
Mm-hmm. That's what we said last week. Yeah, that's a big one.
And on 4th of July, are you going to be at Red, White, and Blue Days, or do you have other plans?
We plan to go to Red, White, and Blue Days.
All right. We appreciate you coming in, Mr. Littleford. And again, if you just tuned in, Larry Lilly was invited here today, but obviously couldn't make it. So we hope to have Larry and Jim back again, because it's always good when they're both in the house here talking about what's going on at our biggest Coles County schools, Charleston and Mattoon. Everyone have a great day. Thanks, Jim.
Jeff, Casey, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Casey. We will see you next week right here on HIMX 88.9 WEIU and WEIU TV.